What's up, guys? I'm going to be talking about marker training in this video. So marker training, clicker training, interchangeable terms. And clicker training specifically talks about the use of this specific tool for the purpose of doing marker training. Marker training just means you use a condition reinforcement to mark. So you use a condition reinforcement as a bridging marker to the behavior that you want to reinforce. So a dog does the behavior, they're gonna get paid, but what the clicker would do is it would announce that there is a reward coming as a result of the particular behavior. And there are a lot of videos out there on clicker training. This is just obviously gonna be one additional video, maybe slightly different take on clicker training. The fundamentals are the same. Clicker training really is about capturing moments in time. The great thing about clicker training is it caters to the way dogs learn. And the way dogs learn is through pictures. So dogs think and they live and they learn in pictures. So the rationalization process for people is different. We rationalize forwards, backwards, and sideways, and we associate meanings based on how we interpret something took place. Whereas with dogs or animals in general, it's more of a moment by moment, picture by picture way of learning. So if a dog does a particular behavior, rather than me saying good boy and then rewarding the dog, there could be too much of a gap between the behavior and the actual reward. Plus the good boy, the reaching for the food, the delivering of the food, there's a little bit of a gap there that could be potentially misinterpreted. For instance, let's say the dog sits, puts the butt on the ground, and I want to reward that, so I reach for my pouch. I say good boy, I reach for my pouch, and then by the time I reach for my pouch, pull the food out and deliver the reward, the dog gets up because it's anticipating the reward. Now it's gonna meet me halfway, it's gonna get the food, and it may potentially associate the reward with the fact that it got up because that was the picture in which it received the reward. But what happens is, if I use marker training, if his butt hits the ground and the second the butt hits the ground, I mark it, right? I use the clicker to mark the behavior instantly. I mark a moment in time. Once this obviously has become a condition reinforcement, I'll talk about what that is in a second. But once the butt hits the ground, I mark it. Basically, I take a picture, and that lets the dog know, boop, perfect, this was the perfect moment. And now if I deliver the reward and the dog happens to get up, just an example, now the association was made with this. Butt hits the ground, this is what happened. As a result of that, this was the announcement, now you're gonna get paid. So the dog is more likely to associate the reward with the act of sitting on the ground, right? Just putting his butt on the ground. The thing about clicker training too is this is meaningless. So I just used the term condition reinforcement. All that means is it's something neutral, right? So this means absolutely nothing to the dog, right? When you first get this, and you start pulling it out and you start just clicking, it very, very likely it's not gonna mean anything. The most it'll do is it might distract your dog momentarily, because maybe it's never heard this before, and it'll kind of, make the dog turn in any direction, right? To try to locate the sound. But that's not how we use the clicker. That's not how it's meant to be used. First, I want to make sure that this neutral thing becomes important to the dog. The way I'm going to do this is by pairing it up with something important to the dog, something biologically important to the dog, which we're going to call primary reinforcement. So the primary reinforcement would be food, water, right? So typically that's what we're going to be used for animal training, food and water. Traditionally, water is not used as much, although it can be, but more so than that, we're going to use food. That's something that we can control a little bit better. We can withhold food for like 1 or 2 meals, and have that dog really, really motivated. And we don't even have to withhold the food. Sometimes, even without withholding any food, you have dogs that are incredibly motivated to work for even 3 pieces of kibble, okay? So that is what's the primary reinforcement, right? The food, something biological, the dog needs it, the dog wants it, and it's very motivated to get it already. This is neutral. So what we would do is we will pair this neutral thing with the food, with the primary reinforcement. So we'll pair this up with, it will be click, feed, click, feed, click, feed, click, feed. And after doing this for several repetitions over a few training sessions, and by the way, when I do this, I'm not expecting the dog to do anything. It's just, here's your food, here's your food, here's your food, here's your food. That's it. We're just making that connection. I'm not asking him to do anything. He doesn't have to offer any behaviors. It's just click, feed, click, feed, click, feed. Do that a handful of times. And what will happen after a few sessions, after several repetitions, this will become the announcement for food. So this would be more classical conditioning. Basically, the dog is making this association, right? We're conditioning this response right now, where this suddenly becomes super important to the dog. And the benefit of this is it's neutral. It's not emotional. Once that connection is made, then this neutral thing becomes a secondary reinforcement. So it's a conditioned reinforcement. It's a reinforcement that had to be paired. It was neutral at one point, now it's important. Now this could be my bridging marker. Now this could be the thing that lets the dog know, perfect, now here's your food. Okay, as far as how to use it and what ways to use it, I already gave you one very brief and simple example. There are obviously different ways to use it. You could use it as a terminal marker, as a continuation marker. You could use it as both. Typically, a lot of people are using it as both. I see people that use it as a continuation marker for 1 click, as a terminal marker for 2 clicks. I personally like to use it as a terminal marker, just period. Terminal marker, period. What that means is terminal marker just means the behavior is over. So the example that I gave you, that was a terminal marker example. Butt hits the ground, perfect. I captured that moment in time. Now that means to you that the behavior is over. Just let's pay you right now. Okay. So terminal marker tends to create explosive responses. It makes the dog know, perfect. Now we can explode out into the reward. Versus using it as a continuation marker, which is also great. But continuation markers, which by the way mean, hey, that was perfect, but don't break just yet. That was perfect, but keep doing what you're doing. That would be a continuation marker. Continuation markers are also great, but they don't create that explosive response. They don't create as much anticipation as the terminal marker, whereas this means you just want something here. All right, whereas the continuation marker would be more like, hold on, keep doing that, but here's your money. Hold on, keep doing that, but here's your reward. You did a good job. So even though continuation markers are beneficial, they're great, and I do use continuation markers, I just use something else for my continuation marker. So my continuation marker is more verbal. It's more like good, or whatever other language that I'm using for the particular dog. It's some sort of good. That means good job, but keep doing that. Whereas to me, this means explode. And when I train, that's how I train. That's how I use it. And that's how a lot of people use it. You probably see people using the clicker where the dog is engaging a particular behavior. They click and they keep doing the behavior. There is no reward. They click, there's no reward. That's more of a continuation marker. Like that was like perfect, but we're not done. It's another great way to use it. Personally, I just don't tend to use it like that. To me, it's perfect. The reward, it's on its way immediately. Okay, so a little bit of you know, a little bit of like I told you in the beginning of the video, a little bit of a different view, maybe slightly different approach on what marker training is, but still not that out there. It's very, very popular way to use it, the way I use it. Now I'm gonna go over a couple of different clickers. You know, you have like the teardrop style clicker. This is also a newer type of clicker. This is made by Starmark, and the way it's made is, yes, it can fit in your thumb. It's got in your hand. Normally used with the thumb, like a lot of people use clickers with their thumbs. But it's got this little clip right here where you can kind of clip it in your belt, clip it in your treat pouch, and that way the whole idea is to keep it in your treat pouch and keeps your hands free, and then you can reach for your belt to click and then reward. Personally, I'm not a fan of that. I like to use this. I like to keep it in my hand. Sometimes I do use this, and you know, when I'm not using it, I'll have it somewhere and I have it ready, but when I'm gonna use it, it's just gonna be in my hand the entire time, and I'm just gonna use it in my hand the entire time, and I'm not gonna reach for, you know, my belt to, you know, click it with the heel of my hand and then deliver the reward. Just too many steps there. Whereas this, I can keep right in the palm of my hands, and personally, I don't like to click with my thumb. It's just, there seems to be too much of a mechanical effort here. I like to use my middle finger, and I like to cup the clicker here, and then I just act more neutral. You know, I can conceal it a little bit easier. More for me, really, it just doesn't get in my way. And then whenever the dog is doing the thing, I just pulse, just a pulse for me. I don't have to think about it as much. It might be something very trivial. It's just, to me, it's just easier to click with the middle finger, and it's almost like a pulse, and then I can reward the dog. Another thing, I'm not pointing it at the dog. It's just right down by my side. My hands are neutral. I will click, and then I would pay my dog with food or a toy, whatever works for that dog, whatever, you know, the dog is working for. So that's it with the clicker. If you like the video, make sure you hit like and subscribe. If you didn't like the video, make sure you hit unlike, but hit it twice just to make sure.